A woman of God doesn't chase men. She doesn't need to. Because when you know who you are in Christ, when you are anchored in your worth, when your identity is not tied to a relationship status, but to the God who designed you, you don't run after anyone. You walk in purpose, and the right one will recognize it. See, chasing is what you do when you believe something valuable might get away. But a woman of God understands that what God has set apart for her cannot escape her. If he wrote your name on it, you don't have to run it down. You just have to keep walking in obedience. When a woman starts chasing a man, it's often because she's been told that without him, she's incomplete. That if she doesn't grab onto him, she'll miss her chance at love, at happiness, at family. But hear this, you don't need to beg someone to see you when you're already seen by God. You don't need to fight for attention when heaven has already stamped you with favor. A man who is truly for you doesn't have to be convinced. He'll pursue you with honor because he knows your value and he knows God's hand is on your life. When you lower your standards just to keep someone, you're telling the world you've forgotten how much you're worth. But a woman of God doesn't measure herself by who chooses her. She measures herself by the one who created her. She doesn't rush to prove she can keep a man because she understands that the wrong man will never stay no matter what you do, and the right man won't leave no matter what comes. There is power in restraint. There is power in stillness. There is power in waiting for what God has ordained instead of exhausting yourself over what he never promised. A woman of God is not desperate for validation. She doesn't need a man's approval to confirm what God already declared over her life. She walks in dignity. She carries herself with grace. She sets boundaries because she knows she's not just anybody. She is a daughter of the King. You've got to stop chasing someone who isn't chasing God. You've got to stop pouring into someone who's only taking from you. You've got to stop running after someone who isn't running toward the same purpose. Because if he's not aligned with God, then he's not aligned with you. And every time you chase, you delay the one God actually set aside for you. The truth is, the one God sends doesn't need to be hunted down. He'll show up. He'll pursue. He'll make his intentions clear. He won't make you question enough. He won't keep you guessing about where you stand. He'll treat you like the blessing you are. Because the right one knows a woman of God isn't ordinary. She's not replaceable. She's not to be played with. She is rare. She is chosen. She is worth every ounce of pursuit. So don't chase. Don't run. Don't beg. Stand firm. Walk in your purpose. Keep your eyes on the one who has already written your story. Because the man who is meant for you will see the glory on your life and will know, this is not a woman to run from, this is a woman to run toward. A woman of God doesn't chase men. She doesn't need to because she knows who she is. She knows what she carries. She knows the crown on her head and the spirit inside of her. Chasing is for those who feel empty, who are searching for someone else to fill what only God can satisfy. But a woman who knows God knows she is already whole. She is already chosen. She is already loved beyond measure. She doesn't waste her breath running after someone who can't even see her worth because she understands her worth is not for everyone. It is for the one God has prepared. Chasing a man says, I don't believe God has timing. I don't trust God's plan. I think I need to take matters into my own hands. But waiting, standing, holding to your standards, that says, I trust my Father to provide. I trust him to align. I trust him to reveal the right one at the right time. And when you wait, you don't just wait in silence. You wait in strength. You wait in prayer. You wait in growth. You wait by becoming everything God has called you to be so that when the right man sees you, he doesn't just see a woman. He sees the promise of God standing in front of him. Let's be real. Chasing often leads to settling. You start bending over backwards to get his attention. You start compromising what you believe just to keep him close. You start changing the way you dress, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, all because you want him to stay. But a man who only stays because you're chasing him is already gone. He doesn't want to be there. He's just entertained by the effort. And a woman of God is too valuable, too anointed, too set apart to play that game. She doesn't perform for affection. She doesn't bargain for love. She doesn't sell her worth at a discount just to say she is someone. Understand this, the right man doesn't need to be chased. The right man recognizes who you are and pursues you accordingly. He sees you as the treasure you are, and he honors that. He doesn't confuse you. He doesn't keep you guessing. He doesn't play with your heart. He makes it known with his actions, not just his words, that he sees you as a gift from God. And that's the difference between chasing and being chosen. When you chase, you're forcing. But when you're chosen, you're simply receiving what God already had in mind. A woman of God carries herself with a confidence that comes from above. She walks into a room and doesn't need to shout for attention. She doesn't need to beg for eyes to turn her way. The Spirit of God inside her draws respect. Her presence speaks before her mouth ever opens. And the man who is truly aligned with her will notice. He won't need to be convinced because the Spirit of God will confirm it in him. Think about Ruth. She didn't chase Boaz. She was faithful in her field. She was diligent in her purpose. She was committed to where God placed her, and Boaz noticed. He pursued her because her character spoke louder than her looks, louder than her status, louder than anything else. A woman of God doesn't chase because she knows her life, her integrity, her faith will attract the right man at the right time. Let me tell you something: when you chase a man, you're telling him he's the prize. You're handing him the crown that God already placed on you. But a woman of God knows she's not the runner in this race. She's the finish line. She's the one worth pursuing. She's the one worth waiting for. She's the one worth praying for. And a man who doesn't see that, a man who doesn't rise to the level of pursuit, is not the man God designed for her. When you lower your standards to catch someone's eye, you end up carrying pain you were never supposed to carry. Because chasing a man will leave you drained. It will leave you questioning your beauty, your worth, your purpose. You'll find yourself asking, what else do I need to do for him to choose me? But a woman of God doesn't live in that cycle. She refuses to let her identity be tied to someone's indecision. She doesn't sit around waiting to be picked like she's in some competition. She already knows she is chosen by God, and no human rejection can cancel that. Chasing makes you desperate. Waiting makes you strong. Chasing drains your energy. Waiting sharpens your faith. Chasing leads to heartbreak. Waiting leads to alignment. The enemy wants you to believe you're behind. He wants you to think you're running out of time. He wants you to panic, to grab whoever's available, to cling to whoever gives you a little bit of attention. But God says, be still. Trust me. I've got someone who won't just give you attention. I've got someone who will give you covering, leadership, love, and commitment. See, when you chase, you're chasing flesh. But when you wait, you're waiting on God's Spirit to move. A woman of God doesn't run behind someone who isn't running toward her. She keeps her pace steady, her head lifted, her heart anchored. She knows that if a man truly has God in his life, then he will also have direction. And if he has direction, then he knows it's his role to lead. It's his role to initiate. It's his role to pursue. And let's not get it twisted. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. Waiting means working on yourself. It means healing from the wounds of the past. It means learning to love yourself so deeply that you won't fall for anyone who doesn't treat you the way you deserve. It means building your relationship with God so strong that when someone comes along, you can discern whether he's from God or from the enemy. A woman of God doesn't just sit idle. She prepares, she grows, she matures. She sharpens her spirit so that when the right man arrives, she doesn't question it. She recognizes it. Don't confuse loneliness with readiness. Just because you feel alone doesn't mean you're ready for a relationship. And just because someone shows up doesn't mean he's sent. That's why chasing is dangerous. It blurs your discernment. You start confusing attention with intention. You start thinking consistency means commitment. But a woman of God knows better. She doesn't fall for words without action. She doesn't fall for promises without proof. She tests the fruit. She watches the walk. She listens to the Spirit. You don't need to send 100 messages. You don't need to constantly check his phone. You don't need to prove your loyalty to someone who can't even spell loyalty. If a man is truly for you, he'll show up, he'll call, he'll make effort, he'll invest. And not just in your looks, not just in your body, but in your soul, in your mind, in your dreams. Because a man of God isn't impressed by how fast you run after him. He's impressed by how deeply you're rooted in Christ. And here's the truth. Chasing is loud, but being chosen is quiet. Chasing is frantic, but being chosen is peaceful. Chasing leaves you restless, but being chosen leaves you assured. That's how you know the difference. When you're chasing, you're always anxious. When you're chosen, you're at peace. Because God doesn't bless you with confusion. He blesses you with clarity. A woman of God knows her body is not her only asset. Her beauty is not her only strength. Her value is not in how quickly she can grab attention. Her value is in her faith, her kindness, her resilience, her anointing. And that's what a true man of God sees. He's not drawn just to your face. He's drawn to your favor. He's not attracted just to your curves. He's attracted to your calling. And if a man can't see that, he's not blind. He's just not the one. So don't chase, don't beg, don't convince, don't twist yourself into knots trying to earn love that should come freely. Because love that has to be chased will eventually have to be chained. And a woman of God is not built to chain someone down. She's built to stand tall, to radiate light, to walk in grace, and to allow the right one to recognize what God has already placed within her. The one who is meant for you won't make you chase. He'll pursue, he'll honor, he'll protect, he'll lead. And most importantly, he'll pray with you and for you. That's how you'll know. Because a woman of God doesn't just need someone to hold her hand. She needs someone who will lift her hands in worship. She doesn't just need someone to text her good night. She needs someone who will speak life into her purpose. She doesn't just need someone who looks good in pictures. She needs someone who looks good in prayer. That is why a woman of God doesn't chase men. Because she knows that real love, God's love, the love he designed for her, doesn't run away. It runs toward her. And when it comes, it doesn't leave her wondering. It leaves her resting. A woman of God doesn't chase men because she knows that chasing is beneath her calling. She understands that desperation is not her portion, that neediness is not her nature, and that compromise is not her assignment. She doesn't waste her time running after someone who is not aligned with her purpose because she knows her life is too valuable to be spent begging for someone's attention. She knows that God has called her to greater things than constantly wondering if she is enough for someone who cannot even decide if he wants to stay. The truth is, chasing takes you out of position, When you are chasing a man, you are no longer chasing God. You are no longer walking in your calling. You are no longer focused on the assignment in front of you. You become distracted, and distraction always delays destiny. A woman of God doesn't want to be delayed, so she refuses to chase. She chooses to focus on what God has called her to do, trusting that the right man will meet her while she is on her path, not while she is running behind him. Chasing creates exhaustion. You start to feel like you're constantly proving yourself, constantly auditioning for a role that was never yours to begin with. You start to question your worth because he doesn't give you the affirmation you crave. But a woman of God doesn't need a man's affirmation to feel valuable. She already knows she is fearfully and wonderfully made. She already knows she is more precious than rubies. She already knows she is the apple of God's eye. And when you know these truths, you don't chase, you simply shine. You live in such a way that the right man can't help but notice. Consider this: the man who is for you will never require you to chase him. A man who is aligned with God will pursue you because he understands that pursuit is his role. He understands that his job is to cover, to protect, to lead. He knows that God placed the responsibility on him to initiate, not on you to chase. So if you find yourself constantly running after a man, constantly trying to hold his attention, constantly feeling like you're the only one investing, you need to pause and realize he's not the one. The one doesn't need to be forced. The one doesn't need to be begged. The one doesn't need to be chased. Look at the story of Esther. She didn't chase the king. She didn't push her way into his life. She didn't beg him to notice her. She prepared, she purified, she positioned herself in excellence. And when the time came, she was chosen. Her character, her dignity, her presence spoke louder than any chase ever could. That's the picture of a woman of God. She doesn't chase because she knows that preparation and patience will bring the right opportunity. When a woman chases a man, she often loses herself in the process. She begins to shrink to fit his world. She abandons her dreams to support his. She silences her voice so he won't feel threatened. And little by little, she becomes a version of herself that God never designed. That's the danger of chasing. You end up trading your crown for crumbs. You end up exchanging your throne for someone else's shadow. But a woman of God doesn't do that. She refuses to shrink. She refuses to dim her light. She refuses to abandon her God-given purpose just to keep a man by her side. Chasing men is rooted in fear. Fear of being alone, fear of missing out, fear of never being loved. But the Bible says that perfect love casts out fear. When you are full of God's love, you are not afraid of being single. You are not afraid of waiting. You are not afraid of being misunderstood, because you know that God's love is enough to sustain you until his plan unfolds. A woman of God doesn't chase because she doesn't operate from fear. She operates from faith. She believes that God knows the desires of her heart. She believes that God has already prepared someone who will value her. She believes that waiting is not punishment. It is preparation. Let's be honest. Some women chase because they think if they don't, no one will want them. But let me tell you this. When you know your worth, you understand that the right man is not going to overlook you. He's not going to pass by what God has ordained for him. If God has written your name in his story, then nothing can erase it. You don't have to chase what is already yours. You don't have to run after what God has already secured. You just have to walk in obedience, and the promise will meet you on the journey. A woman of God carries herself differently. She doesn't compete with others for attention. She doesn't beg for validation. She doesn't compromise her standards to keep someone interested. She knows her standards are not walls to keep love out. They are filters to keep the wrong kind of love from coming in. She understands that boundaries are not about being difficult. They are about being discerning. And a man who is truly from God will respect those boundaries, not try to break them. Think about Proverbs 31. That woman wasn't chasing anyone. She was busy building, working, nurturing, creating, serving. Her life was full of purpose, and that purpose spoke for her. The Bible says her husband and children rise up and call her blessed. She didn't have to demand their recognition. It came naturally because of how she lived. That's what happens when a woman of God stays focused on her calling. The right people, the right opportunities, the right man will all recognize her value without her having to chase. Another thing about chasing, it steals your peace. You're always wondering, does he like me? Does he care? Is he texting someone else? You live in constant anxiety because you're afraid of losing what you worked so hard to keep. But peace is the confirmation of God. Confusion is the confirmation of compromise. If you have to chase it, it's not from God. If you have to fight for scraps of attention, it's not from God. If you're constantly losing sleep, constantly second guessing, constantly doubting yourself, that's not love. That's torment. And God never designed love to torment you. He designed it to reflect his peace. A woman of God doesn't chase because she knows the difference between interest and intention. Any man can be interested, but not every man has intention. Interest will text you at night. Intention will plan a future with you. Interest will complement your looks. Intention will honor your character. Interest will take from you. Intention will invest in you. And the only way to see the difference is to stop chasing and let him reveal himself. When you chase, you cloud your judgment. When you wait, you allow God to reveal the truth. And let me make this clear, not chasing doesn't mean you're cold or closed off. It doesn't mean you're hard to love. It means you know your role. It means you understand that pursuit is his responsibility, not yours. It means you have the self-control to let God's order play out. Because when a man pursues you, it reveals his seriousness. It shows his commitment. It proves his character. But when you do the chasing, you never give him a chance to reveal who he truly is. This is why a woman of God values her silence. She doesn't always rush to respond. She doesn't always chase after answers. She allows her absence to speak. She allows her presence to be missed. She allows God to work in the spaces where she steps back. Because sometimes stepping back reveals the truth faster than chasing ever could. If a man walks away, let him. If he pulls back, don't run after him. If he doesn't value you, don't try to convince him. Because the one who is meant for you will not need convincing. He will not need chasing. He will not need endless explanations. He will see you and he will know. And that knowing will drive him to pursue you with respect, with clarity, with purpose. So a woman of God doesn't chase men. She doesn't chase because she knows she is the prize, not the pursuer. She doesn't chase because she knows her time is better spent chasing God. She doesn't chase because she knows her peace is too precious to sacrifice for confusion. She doesn't chase because she knows that anything she has to chase will not last. She doesn't chase because she knows that the right man will do what he's supposed to do, step up, pursue, and honor the gift that she is. A woman of God doesn't chase men because she knows the one who is meant for her will not run from her, he will run to her. She doesn't live with the pressure of trying to be in the right place at the right time because she knows she serves a God who orders her steps. And if he orders her steps, then the right man will meet her along the path of obedience. That's why she doesn't panic. That's why she doesn't lower her standards. That's why she doesn't live in desperation. She knows her value, and when you know your value, you don't chase what doesn't recognize it. Chasing may feel like you're doing something, like you're proving your loyalty, like you're making sure he doesn't forget you. But the truth is, chasing only reveals that you don't trust God's timing. It exposes that you're afraid you'll miss out if you don't make something happen yourself. But a woman of God has learned the art of surrender. She has learned to release her desires into the hands of her Creator, knowing that his plan is better than hers. She understands that God knows how to bring the right man at the right moment in a way she could never orchestrate. And because she believes that, she doesn't need to chase, she only needs to obey. Chasing a man is exhausting because it flips God's order upside down. God designed men to pursue, to initiate, to take responsibility in relationships. When you chase, you're taking on a role that was never meant to be yours. You end up carrying weight you were not designed to carry. And eventually that weight becomes a burden, a stress, a constant pressure that drains you. A woman of God refuses to live like that. She understands that peace is her portion, not pressure. So she steps back, she trusts, and she allows God to send someone who knows how to pursue her with clarity, consistency, and commitment. Look at Hannah in the Bible. She didn't chase approval from people who mocked her. She didn't chase after the love she wasn't getting. She took her pain to God, and God gave her more than she ever asked for. That is what a woman of God does. She takes her longings to the throne, not into her own hands. She knows that prayer accomplishes more than chasing ever could. She knows that her tears on the altar are worth more than her texts to someone who won't respond. A woman of God doesn't chase because she doesn't confuse attention with love. Attention can be given by anyone, but love comes from commitment, sacrifice, and intention. Attention can be bought with effort, with looks, with charm, but love is proven over time with actions that align with God's word. She knows that attention fades, but love endures. And because she knows the difference, she doesn't get caught up in chasing temporary feelings. She waits for the one who will give her lasting commitment. There's a peace that surrounds a woman who refuses to chase. People notice it. She doesn't look desperate. She doesn't look worried. She walks with her head high because she knows she's in God's hands. And that peace attracts the right kind of man. The kind of man who isn't intimidated by her standards but inspired by them. The kind of man who doesn't run from her confidence but honors it. The kind of man who knows that pursuing her will require him to grow, to lead, to rise to her level. That's what happens when you refuse to chase. The right one rises, the wrong ones leave. Let's talk about chasing for a moment. When you chase, you put yourself in the position of proving. You're constantly trying to show that you're worthy of his love, his time, his attention. But proving is not your assignment. You don't have to prove your value to anyone because God already validated you. You don't have to prove you're lovable because the cross already proved it. You don't have to prove you're enough because God's Spirit living inside you is already more than enough. A woman of God doesn't live in the cycle of proving. She lives in the confidence of knowing. When you stop chasing, you protect your heart because chasing often leads you into the arms of someone who doesn't even deserve you. You settle for less than God's best because you're so afraid of being alone. You accept red flags because you think you can't do better. But a woman of God doesn't ignore the warning signs. She pays attention. She listens to the Spirit. She refuses to compromise her peace just to have a title or a temporary sense of belonging. She'd rather be single and whole than attached and broken. Remember, this loneliness is not the same as being alone. Sometimes God will allow you to feel the sting of loneliness so you can learn that His presence is enough. Because if you don't learn that lesson, you'll spend your life chasing men to fill a void only God can fill. But when you learn to be content in his presence, you become powerful. You become unshakable. You become a woman who doesn't settle for counterfeit love because she knows the real thing is worth waiting for. Think about Mary, the mother of Jesus. She wasn't casing Joseph. She wasn't running around looking for someone to validate her. She was chosen. God entrusted her with something so valuable that the right man had to be assigned to her. Joseph didn't come because she chased him. Joseph came because God ordained it. And when God ordains it, you don't have to run. It will find you. A woman of God doesn't chase men because she knows chasing makes her forget her mission. Her mission is not to be in a relationship at all costs. Her mission is to glorify God with her life. And when she focuses on that mission, everything else aligns. The right man will not pull her away from her purpose. He will amplify it. He will encourage her, support her, and pray with her. But she knows she doesn't need to chase for that to happen. She only needs to keep walking in her assignment. Chasing always asks, what if he leaves? But faith says, if he's not from God, let him go. That's the mindset of a woman of God. She doesn't cling to what doesn't belong. She doesn't force what isn't working. She doesn't panic when someone walks away. She trusts that rejection is protection. She believes that closed doors are God's direction. She knows that if she lost it, she didn't need it. And if she needs it, God will bring it. She doesn't chase because she knows her destiny is too great to waste on someone who doesn't value it. She knows her time is too precious to spend on someone who won't invest in it. She knows her love is too deep to give to someone who won't honor it. That's why she guards her heart. That's why she sets standards. That's why she refuses to settle. Because she knows her life is a gift, and only a man who recognizes that gift is worthy of sharing it. And when the right man comes, he won't make her question her worth. He won't make her chase him. He won't make her compete for his attention. He will pursue her with clarity, with respect, with honor. He will pursue her not because she begged him to, but because he recognizes the hand of God on her life. He will pursue her because he knows she's not just a woman, she's a woman of God, and that means she is rare, she is valuable, and she is worth every step of pursuit. So she doesn't chase, she waits, she trusts, she prays. She lives her life fully knowing that God has already written her story, and when the right man appears, it will be confirmation, not confusion. It will be peace, not panic. It will be joy, not anxiety. Because a woman of God doesn't chase men, she chases God, and in chasing him, she finds everything else she needs. A woman of God doesn't chase men because she knows that running after someone is an insult to the God who created her. It is saying to the Creator, I don't believe you know what's best for me. I don't trust that you will provide. I think I have to force what only you can ordain. But she knows better. She knows that God is not a God of half promises. If he said he will give her the desires of her heart when she delights in him, then he will. If he said he makes all things beautiful in his time, then he will. If he said no good thing will he withhold from those who walk uprightly, then he will. She knows his word does not return void, so she doesn't panic, she doesn't chase, she doesn't compromise, she waits. Waiting doesn't mean doing nothing. It means preparation. It means faithfulness. It means building the life God has called her to live. While some women spend their energy running after men, a woman of God spends her energy running after purpose. She's busy cultivating her gift. She's busy serving others. She's busy walking in obedience. She's busy becoming everything God has called her to be. And in that process, she shines so brightly that the right man can't help but notice. He doesn't see someone desperate. He sees someone destined. He doesn't see someone chasing him. He sees someone chasing God, and that is the most attractive thing a man of God can find. Think about Rebecca in the book of Genesis. She didn't chase Isaac. She wasn't standing at the well begging someone to notice her. She was simply faithful in the task at hand, drawing water. And in her faithfulness, she was found. Isaac didn't show up because she was desperate. He showed up because God aligned the moment. That is the beauty of trusting God's timing. You don't have to run after what he has already written into your life. All you have to do is be faithful, and the right person will meet you right where God placed you. Chasing a man puts you in competition with other women, but a woman of God knows she is incomparable. She doesn't need to fight for his attention because if he truly sees her value, no one else will compare. She doesn't need to outdo anyone because her uniqueness is her power. She doesn't need to prove she is worthy because her worth is already established. Competing is for those who don't know who they are. But a woman of God knows she is chosen, so she doesn't compete. She simply stands confident in who she is and whose she is. Chasing makes you ignore the warning signs. When you're so busy trying to hold on to someone, you overlook the red flags. You excuse disrespect. You minimize bad behavior. You convince yourself you can fix him. But a woman of God doesn't fall for that trap. She doesn't close her eyes to the truth. She doesn't chase someone who isn't chasing God. She knows that if a man isn't submitted to God, then he cannot lead her. And if he cannot lead her, then he cannot walk with her. So she releases him not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Sometimes chasing feels easier than waiting. Waiting feels slow. Waiting feels uncertain. Waiting feels uncomfortable. But waiting produces fruit. Waiting develops patience. Waiting strengthens faith. Waiting prepares you for the blessing. And a woman of God understands that if she rushes the process, she may end up with less than what God intended. So she chooses the harder thing. She chooses to wait because she knows that what God has for her will be worth every second of patience. She doesn't chase because she knows her future is too important to tie it to the wrong man. She knows one wrong relationship can derail years of progress. She knows one wrong connection can steal her peace, her joy, her confidence. So she guards her heart with wisdom. She doesn't let loneliness drive her into the wrong arms. She doesn't let fear convince her to settle. She doesn't let culture pressure her into chasing someone just to say she has someone. She chooses wisely because she knows her destiny is at stake. And when the right man comes, it won't be confusion. It won't be endless games. It won't be back and forth. It will be clear. It will be steady. It will be consistent. He won't make her wonder where she stands. He won't make her chase him down for answers. He will step into her life with clarity and show her that he's ready to pursue her the way God intended. That is why she waits. That is why she refuses to chase, because she knows that love, real love, ordained love, doesn't need to be forced. It flows naturally. Even Sarah, when God promised her a son, tried to chase the promise by putting her own plan into action with Hagar. And what did that produce? Pain, conflict, and delay. But when she stepped back and let God move in his timing, the promise came exactly the way he intended. That is the lesson a woman of God takes to heart. Chasing creates chaos, but waiting brings fulfillment. She doesn't chase men because she knows she has nothing to prove. She doesn't chase because she knows she is already enough. She doesn't chase because she knows that her love is too precious to give to someone who doesn't value it. She doesn't chase because she knows her story is in God's hands and he writes better than she ever could. She doesn't chase because she knows the right man will not run from her. He will pursue her, honor her, and love her the way God designed. And that is why a woman of God stands tall, lives with dignity, walks in purpose, and trusts the timing of her Father. She knows her worth, she knows her value, and she knows her crown is too heavy to waste on someone who cannot carry it. So she doesn't chase, she waits, she trusts. And she knows that in God's perfect timing, the right one will come, not because she chased him, but because she chased God, and God made sure the right man chased her. So in the end, a woman of God doesn't chase men because she understands her identity, her value, and her purpose are far too great to be compromised by desperation. She knows her worth is already secured in the hands of her Creator, and the right man will recognize that worth without needing to be convinced. She lives her life anchored in faith, clothed in dignity, and walking in purpose, trusting that God's timing is perfect and his promises are sure. She doesn't run after what isn't meant for her. She waits, she prays, she prepares, and she allows God to align her steps with the one who will love her, honor her, and pursue her the way he designed. And when that man comes, she will know that she never had to chase him because what was from God was always running toward her.